talk about Rocco. So, I'm all in on that. He was quite a guy, man. Very interesting, very unusual. Kind of, he had his own beat that he walked, danced his music to. Uh, he was something.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the Extraordinary Drummer Show. As you know, I'm your host, Cheron Moore. Today is a different day on the show. My guest today, David Garibaldi from the group TOP, Tower Power. We're gonna take a different turn today. As you know, him and Rocco, rest in peace, our dear friend and awesome bass player, made his transition just recently. And we're really blessed and honored today to have David come in and talk about his relationship with Rocco, all the great music, all the great years. And we're really honored to have this moment, to have this exclusive. Would you help me welcome my guest today? As I said, from the group TOP, Tower of Power, David
Sharon,
Garibaldi. Hey,
thank,
David.
thank you, man. Thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure.
I I told myself in this interview I didn't want to ask a lot of questions. I didn't want to kind of guide you through it. I just wanted you to talk about your relationship with him, how you guys met. What was it like making the music? What was it that made that pocket just so special? Just and then also I remember some of these questions, but what's it like going forth? And have you guys found a new guy and the sound
Hmm.
changing of the sound,
Yeah,
changing
we
of the
talk about
band?
all that.
So
Yeah, we can talk about all that for sure. I met Rocco. When I joined the band, I was 23 years old. Rocco, I believe, was 18, 19, something like that. And, he just was this fresh faced little teenage guy who already had a sound. He already had a kind of a way that he was playing. When I went to hear the band for the first time, they were playing at a place called Keystone Corner in San Francisco, really famous music venue here, in the Bay Area. And at the time, one of the main music clubs, in the city. And so Tower asked me to come. A couple of the guys, asked me if I want to come and check the band out. So of course, they said they were considering making a drummer change, and so that was my reason for going. Really, I had never heard of them before, and as I said, I think maybe in my previous time with you, they were doing like original music already. They were like teenage guys. Original music and some obscure kind of cover songs. That you would only know if you were a musician. You know, and doing them kind of arranging things in their own way. And Rocco, he was like the sound, kind of like a big part of their sound. He had that real thumpy, kind of thing on the low end. He had an Ampeg bass amp, and because he had no technique, he took a piece of foam and he put it on right next to where his pickups were, so that he could deaden the sound because he didn't understand the technique of playing the bass. And so he couldn't get the notes to be dead enough, so he put that piece of foam under there, and it gave him that real percussive, sort of thumpy kind of sound. And so the way that he played the bass was two fingers here with this hand, with the right hand, and then two fingers with this hand on the neck. So most bass players, they play with positions and understand all of that stuff about how they, move their fingers. Like Rocco, was it, instead of all of this, which you normally see with a bass player or guitar player, Rocco was like this, with his hands flat on the neck of the guitar, and he would get the notes with these two fingers like this, and he moved kind of this way, up and down the neck. So he didn't really play positions like bass players do. He was kind of like all over the place. Wherever he'd find the note he wanted, that's where he'd go. And then he would mute with these two fingers and kind of get play notes on the neck with these two fingers like that. And so it was this real thumpy sort of thing. He kept his fingers real flat and he kind of moved in this way up and down the neck. And It was totally unique, totally his own way to play. You know, when when he passed, they did that webinar at the Berkeley College. Steve Bailey and Victor Wooten, they did this really beautiful tribute to him, and there was like, I mean, every bass player on the face of the planet who was anywhere, you know, near the top of the mountain, they were there to pay respects. And I mean, all these guys, and um, it was really something to see that. And so a lot of those guys talked about studying Rocco's technique, and they were trying to get it, you know. And the thing that they were missing is that they had too much knowledge to do it. They were trying to do it right, where Rocco was all wrong and happy to be wrong, you know. And so another thing that about Rocco is that when he was playing the bass, he was playing the bass. When he wasn't playing the bass, he wasn't playing the bass. He wasn't thinking about it or anything like that. He picked up his instrument, he played, he put it down, he wasn't playing. He would just kind of go for periods where if he didn't have to work, he wasn't touching his bass. So he approached it kind of in a very intuitive, you know, sort of instinctual, you know, kind of way, um, instinctive kind of way, you know. So sometimes when we would come back to work after maybe 10 days or 2 weeks off, he would have to relearn some of the songs, some of his parts, because that's how he was. He didn't keep it in his head, you know. And so he just navigated his way through the music, you know, Rocco style, and he was great with a drummer. I mean, he was like radar, you know. And so I remember when we first started playing together, I was making recordings of, you know, cassette recordings of the rehearsals, you know, so I could understand kind of what was going on. And so I noticed that when I would play like short notes, he would play real staccato short notes. When I play my hi-hat, everything's real tight, and he would tighten up his sound. And then when I go to my cymbal, which was a more legato, longer sound, he would play longer notes. And I'm going, wow, this is pretty amazing. So I asked him, I said, Rocco, you know, tell him what I was hearing. And I said, Rocco, do you know that you're doing that? Why do you do it? And he says, well, I think that's what I should do. So he wasn't coming from the place of any sort of, you know, bass school, you know, technique or anything like that. He just heard the sound and he tried to match the sound. And that's what, you know, people go to school to learn how to do that. And Rocco did it by instinct, you know, it's just something that he felt. And he was always like that. And so playing with him was really fantastic. You know, it's not something we ever really talked about. You know, I think the times when we did have discussions about what we did, maybe it was its poorest. Our relationship, you know, musically was not the best because it was all just about listening to each other and then playing, you know, like a good conversation. You know, you listen and then you know what to say to respond. And it was always like that, you know. It was a lot of listening going on, and pretty fantastic, you know, for many, many years.
You and Rocco talk about when it came to the music? What was the conversation like? Did you give him things that you corners and breaks and this is what I'm looking at? And did he give that back to you? What was it that made that just that pocket between you two guys? What
Well,
were
we
the
never really
conversations?
discussed it so much. We just played. Rocco had the, you know, like a really great ability to listen and fit himself into what was going on. And, you know, he would take ideas from, you know, from Mimi, you know, Emilio, who would kind of help him with stuff. And then he didn't have a lot of knowledge, so he didn't really understand he didn't have a way to express in musical terms what he wanted. So oftentimes he didn't say anything and he'd just play and he would listen and fit himself in. And then other times I would suggest things like when we were doing the Oakland Stroke on the Back to Oakland album. That was basically, I'd started out as a jam that we had done a year or so earlier, and it was just kind of hanging around. We never did anything with it. We needed an extra tune for that album, and that jam became the Oakland Stroke. And when we were rehearsing it, I play the beat, and there was two places in the middle of the beat where there's two open hi-hats. And so I told Rocco, check this out. And where those two open hi-hats are, don't play anything. And then in the other places, play everything, anything you want, any notes you want, any rhythms, anything. But and then I would say, and then just tell me what you think. See what happens, right? We would do it like that because he didn't like anybody to tell him what to do. So I didn't want to make him think I was telling him what to do. So I had to do psychology, right? And so that's how the Oakland Stroke was born. And then a few years later, we were working on something. I can't remember what it was. But he looks at me, points his finger at me, goes, I know what you're doing. Like it's a big secret, And we laughed at that one, But he just was, it was really something.
What was Rocco's favorite song to play with you guys?
I don't know that he ever said that there was. I don't know that he ever said there was. I mean, certainly one that, he gets a lot of press for is What Is Hip, with the 16th note bass line and all that stuff, And that original idea came from listening to Freddie King, a song called Going Down, that blues guitar player Freddie King. And so the idea sort of came from that, and, Rocco just took it somewhere else, made an arrangement out of it, and it was cool. But I don't know that I ever heard Rocco say that he had a favorite, because he just played everything so well, and just, it was, Rocco was, he was just something, man. He didn't really say that I like this. I didn't even say he would tell you if he didn't like something, that's for sure. But he wasn't like that. I love this and that. He was not that way.
So that makes me have two questions in one. One, how would he express that he didn't like something? And did you and him ever argue?
Oh, hell yes. Brothers, how there's family, of course, there's going to be dust up once in a while, but you're still family, right? And so there was that. But, Rocco, if he didn't like something, he would say it. It's the way he was, He was very honest. He was, what you see is what you got, He was like that. There was no hidden agendas in Rocco or anything like that. You knew exactly what he was, where he was coming from at all times.
Power of power.
Everybody put your hands up.
When I think of Rocco, one of the things other than that glove sound you and him had, with all the action happening around him, two guitar players, organs, all the horns, and then the bass player, and then the bass horn playing. How was Rocco able to keep that bass outside of all that? It always sounded like he had it locked up as a player, but he sounded like he was over there all the time. You know what I mean?
Well, he had a lot of personality in his playing, so, he was not a flashy kind of player, but he just had a unique way of doing things, and it was all his own, I mean, we were rehearsing one time. It was a sound check rehearsal, and I can't remember exactly the song we were playing, but Mimi asked Rocco in one section of the tune, "What is the note you're playing?" Rocco tells him. Mimi says, "Oh no, that's the wrong note." Well, it turns out Rocco had been playing the wrong note for 30 years and, just discovered that it was wrong. And so he tried to play the correct note, and he didn't like it, and he went back to doing it his other way. That was Rocco, He was like so wrong that it was right,
He gave another meaning to "I did it my way," huh?
Yes, sir. Another meaning to it's wrong, too. I mean,
I had the pleasure of meeting Rocco at NAMM. I'm going to use a picture of it. And didn't have a whole lot of words. It didn't seem like he was a man of a lot of words.
no, he, not really. If you knew him, he would speak a little bit more, but he was pretty quiet, and he was very much a loner. He was had a lot of friends, a lot of people that loved him and stuff, and he had relationships had close friends and all that stuff. But, he was kind of did his own thing at all times,
Going forward a little bit here, David, with a new guy coming in.
Yeah, he's already been in for a while now.
Really?
Oh yeah, his name is Mark van Wackeningen. He's from Amsterdam. He is a very, very bad man. I've known him for many years. We've played a lot together here in the Bay Area, and recorded together and done a bunch of different things together. And actually, he was a sub for Rocco for about 15 years prior to joining the band, and he would come and play with us, whenever we needed him. And so at one point, we were going to have him play more regularly, but he was in the Wayne Brady show, the Wayne Brady, television show band. So he did that for quite a while. And then in the later years, when Rocco's health started having problems with health, and he couldn't really make gigs sometimes, we would get Mark to play. And then when Mark was in that accident, we were in the accident together. And so he's in the band now, took Rocco's place. We had to let Rocco go at one point, and it was pretty tough. But I think, at the time it was necessary because Rocco's health was, kind of not so great, and it just, the road was too much for him. Our schedule was too crazy. He was like passing out in hotel rooms and all kinds of crazy stuff, ending up in hospitals in Europe, and, we just had to take him off the road, and then Mark come in. He's a fabulous musician, man. Can play so many different kinds of music and plays tower music just the way it's supposed to be, He's not Rocco, and he's not trying to be. He's himself,
Before I move on to Mark, I had a few more with him. Your last days with Rocco, did you guys talk? Did you get a chance to talk and say goodbye and talk and stuff?
Not really. We sort of, I guess, said our goodbyes when he left the band. And it was that way for, I think, a lot of guys. He didn't really take it very well. that was his home, really, musically. And so, but it was necessary for us to, to move forward. So it was, the end part was not so not so great, in that regard, you know.
This is a hard one, David. I got to tell you, this is a hard interview for me, man, because I'm feeling that. The new guy, which is not really the new guy, Mark. What changes has it made you play as a drummer? Did it change anything for you? Did your approach have to go slightly? And how did it change the sound of the band? The band to me always had like a heavy bottom, a heavy thumping sound. Did it
Still
change
does.
any at all?
Still does because he that's the way he plays. Mark plays, it's like that. Still the same. Uh, he has a style that's real similar to Rocco, but he has a lot different kind of he can play jazz and Latin music and all this, and he's got a lot of influences in his approach. Um, really a great listener, fabulous guy, and actually, a composer as well. He's got solo album that he did with his brother. Paul, who passed away, was a drummer, great drummer, and they came to the United States from Amsterdam when they were young men, you know, uh, to play music. And so they just played together for years and, had bands together and that kind of thing, So um, Mark is cool, it's kind of like he's really a very present, an active participant in the music, Uh, and Rocco was that way for a long time. And then, kind of as his health started having health issues, that sort of went away, and it was difficult for him to concentrate and different things, Still great, but not, it was, it wasn't, it was hard for him to be in it, in the way that he could be.
As I let you go here, what is your takeaways that you take away from your relationship with Rocco over the years, and what is that you want people to know about him? What is your takeaways that you got from him, and then what do you want people to know about Rocco?
Well,
And
Rocco,
so,
Rocco wrote his own story. He wasn't afraid. He was maddeningly individualistic. He would do his thing no matter what, and he had such a unique personality. Making music with him was really a lot of fun. It was a challenge, of course, like everything is. But when you have relationships with people, man, that are really kind of unspoken, but it's very close. Man, that's a deep, deep thing, and I'm sure everyone has some relationships like that. Long-term relationships where you don't have to talk, you just kind of can feel each other. You kind of know what's going on. People that are closer to you than your family, even. And that was kind of the environment that Rocco and I were in with Tower. And still it's like that. You're just so close with people, you feel them, you understand what's happening, and you live life together. It's really a great, great thing. I wouldn't trade it for anything, man. It's the coolest.
maybe let me say thank you so very much for being on the Extraordinary Drummer Show.
Like, that's 2 times now, man. Come on, this is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I've gotten so many people around the world that you've just blessed with coming on the show. I don't know if they have ever seen you in such a way. I think they heard so much about quarter notes and eighth notes from you that they get a chance to meet you now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm here. This is the this is the beat factory in here, you know. So
We stay in touch, man.
yes, I'll do it. And you, God bless you, man. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that. And you know, we'll see each other again soon. I'm sure. I'm sure I'll be back for part 3. So you're going to come up with something. I know it.
You know I am, David. You know I am. Will you help us wave goodbye to the audience? Thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Thank you.